All right, so factoring, splitting the middle when a is 1, we're going to learn the shortcut method, which will help make it pretty quick. So when we talk about when a is 1, we're talking about the front part. So it's just a 1 or just an x squared because we don't normally put the 1. So we're just talking about something that has an x squared and no number in front. So don't forget GCF. That is what we always do first. So make sure every single time before you start that you're looking for a GCF. All right, so let's take a look at splitting the middle method. And yep, we're going to be splitting that middle term. So when we have 3 terms, here's our middle term, b, and we can only use this shortcut method when a is 1. So that's the only time is when it's just an x squared that we can use this shortcut method. So I'm going to use show you the long method that we're going to use when a is not 1. We're getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves, but still, it's going to show you that this is much easier if you learn that shortcut. So again, this is a 1 in front, and what we do is we take the first term times the last term, and we come up with 12. Now we're going to come up with the factors of 12 that add to get 7. So if you need to write them all out, go for it. If that's something that you need to do, maybe off to the side. That way you don't take up too much space. So 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. And then we look to see, well, which one of those is going to add to get 7? No. Yeah, that adds to get 7. So we're going to use 3 and 4 because that's going to add to get 7. So both positive. And what we're going to do is we're going to split this middle term up as the 2 factors that we found. So basically, we're going to have x squared. Now remember I said we're splitting this up, so we want a 3x plus a 4x in the middle instead of a 7x. Isn't that the same thing? Yeah. 3x plus 4x is 7x. So then we have our plus 12. So this is the exact same thing as this written up here. The only difference is we split that middle term. All right, so now this should look familiar to you when we've got 4 terms. What do? Well, we group. So what can come out of those is an x. What can come out of those is a 4. And then we're going to actually take it out. Dividing both of these by x is x plus 3. Dividing both of these by 4 is x plus 3. Do they match? Yes. So we know we have an x plus 3, and then our second part is going to be, or our first part, wherever you want to put it, is going to be our greatest common factors that we actually took out. So there we go. All right, now let's learn the shortcut method. Much easier and much shorter, if you can imagine. So only when a is 1. So what we're going to do is come up with the factors that multiply to get 12 but add to get 7. So just like we did over here, and we already know them, and it's 3 and 4. So since the factors of 12 are 3 and 4, we can go ahead and make 2 sets of parentheses. We're going to put an x at the beginning of both sets, and then we're going to put our 2 factors that we came up with as the second number. And then they're both positive. And does this match what we got on the first one? Yeah. So look how short that was in comparison to this. Again, you can only use it, circle, only use it when a is 1. So when it's just an x squared, because that way we can put our x in our x. All right, so let's go ahead and try some more. It's going to go pretty quickly now that we know that shortcut method. One thing to remember, though, as you're doing this, if our a times c is a negative number, well, then that means one of them is negative. So just keep that in mind. So -6, what are the factors? Well, we're going to have to use 1 and 6 or 3 and 2, but one of them's negative and we need a 5. So it's not going to get that because if one of them's negative, it's going to have to be this pair. So it's going to have to be an x minus 1 and an x plus 6. So one of them's negative. And then over here, if a times c is positive, so factors of 6, then they both are positive. So it's either going to be 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. And which ones are going to add to get 5? Well, if they're both positive, that would add to get 7. So it has to be 2 and 3. So you've got to pay attention to those signs because you could have those same factors and it's very similar, but you're using two different numbers. So be very careful with signs. All right, let's do some of these together. So again, we're going to figure out the factors that multiply to get 24, that add to get 2. Again, watching our signs. So if this is negative, one of them's negative. So a times c is a negative 24. If again, you need to write those factors off to the side, go for it. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. All right, so which ones of those is going to get us 2, with one of them being negative? This one. And we'd have to make the 6 the negative. So that's kind of the trickiest part. It doesn't matter which ones you put where, just make sure that the signs are correct with the correct number. All right, let's do a couple more together. So number 2, factors of 63 that add to get 2. Well, automatically I think 9 and 7. And yep, if it's 9 and 7 and I make the 9 negative, then those together would add to get negative 2. So x minus 9 and x plus 7. All right, let's do one where we've got a positive, but we've got a negative here. Well, we know it has to multiply to get positive, but add to get negative. So that's going to be 2 negatives that multiply to get a positive, but add to get a negative. So they're both negative. 5 and 10. And make them both negative? Yeah, there it is. This add to get negative 15, but multiply to get positive 50. So x minus 5 and x minus 10. All right, so try some more of those and then pause, check your answers when you're ready. All right, now if you didn't do this on your own, don't just copy down the answers because that's not what's going to help you pass these mastery quizzes. You must practice. So when I tell you to pause and try them, make sure that you are trying them without cheating to train your brain to recognize how to do this factoring. All right, so check those and then let's move on to the next section. Now remember that our rule is to always check for GCF. Now I haven't been saying that out loud because those ones up above, obviously we couldn't take anything out of those. But remember that we're always looking to see if we can take something out of every term. And this one, yes, we can take a 2 out. So when we take 2 out of every single thing, there's what we're left with. Now we can actually factor this because it looks like what's up above. It's got an x squared and it's got 3 terms. We can come up with the factors of negative 12 that add to get 1. And thinking about that, what times what? Not 6 and 2, not 1 and 12, 3 and 4. So I'm going to put 3 and 4 in there and then I'm going to adjust my signs. Don't forget that this 2 is coming along for the ride. So now I need a negative 1. So that means that my 4 is going to be negative and my 3 is going to be positive. Let's do one more together. Let's pull out a 6 on this one because they all have a factor that we can take out. That's 6 if we divide each of them. So now come up with the factors of 2 that add to get 1. Well, there's only 2 and 1. And remember, we want our x's in the front, and we want it to add to get a positive 1x. So that means that the 2 would be positive and the 1 would be negative. And double check, make sure 2 times negative 1, yep, that's negative 2. And what goes along for the ride? 6. Try that last one on your own and check when you're ready. All right, and you should have, for that last one, taking out a 3. And the factors of 30 that add to get 11 are 6 and 5. And don't forget that 3 comes down along for the ride. All righty. That is it for this lesson. Again, make sure that you are practicing lots and lots of these questions, and there's plenty online you could Google if you feel like you need more than what I've given you today. Make sure to write any questions that you have at the bottom, and I'll see you in class.